Sorry everybody, it's Xilicks here, and welcome to Season 6, Week 1 of the Elysian League. We are facing off against Craft this week, and if you want to skip straight to the battle, make sure to click the link in the description below. Now, I am sick, so bear with me, but we are going to do this anyways. So yeah, looking at Craft's team, we have quite an interesting team here. Quite a few mons that I wanted, like Lucario and Gliscor, but that's fine. I also wanted Arcanine at one point, but you know, it's fine. It's fine, Craft. You can take all the mons I want. It's fine. But aside that, let's get into his breakdown. So his Mega is Megalodios, a very powerful dragon, can be pretty bulky, can also set up sweep in front of us, can just drop Draco Meteors, so we do have to, you know, have responses to that, which I believe I do. But yeah, I'm not too afraid of this Latios. I do think that he's going to bring it against my team. I do have ways of dealing with it, so we'll see. Next up, we have Zoroark. Now, Zoroark can be threatening no matter what. If it catches you off guard and gets a surprise KO, it can totally ruin your plan, your strategy, so we do have to try to keep track of this thing if it does get brought, especially because it can use Z moves. Zoroark has a pretty wide arsenal of special attacks, being able to go for things like Sludge Bomb, Flamethrower, Dark moves, whatnot. We do have to be wary of this thing, and if it does get brought, if it has a Z move, then we gotta look out for it. Next up, we have Thunderous Eye, who is the other Z Captain. Again, this thing obviously not as threatening as the potential hiding from Zoroark, but it can go for very powerful Gigavolt Havocs. It can use Z moves to set up to give it boosts, and my team, it doesn't deal amazingly well with electric types. Now, I definitely do have a response to it this week, but there is just the thought of it going for a Gigavolt Havoc and totally ruining my strategy, so that has to be kept in check. We have to try to weaken that thing by setting up rocks whenever we can, and yeah, big threat. Next up, we have Clefable. Clefable I'm not too worried about, and I honestly doubt it'll even be brought. If it does get brought, then we have ways of dealing with it. The reason I just don't think it'll be brought is because we have so many ways of killing it. I just don't think it'll be brought. Even if it's brought totally defensively, we can still knock it out very easily. If it does get brought, the only reason would maybe be to deal with Dragonite, but Dragonite could just go for like a Z Iron Tail or even just a regular Iron Tail and still do quite a lot of damage. So I just don't think Clefable will be brought, but if it does, we have ways of dealing with it. Next up, we have Arcanine, a mon that I believe is being brought for sure. Now, originally when I was team building, I did not want to bring Sun, and the reason I did not want to bring Sun is because Arcanine in the Sun can be scary towards my team. Boosting its Flare Blitzes or Flamethrowers or whatever set it's running can be very dangerous, as well as also giving it the boosted healing from Morning Sun. The other thing that the Sun does is it weakens our water type attacks, so if it is Milotic versus Arcanine in the Sun, our Milotic is just going to be at a disadvantage as our Scalds are going to be doing less damage, coupled in with the fact that we already cannot burn it, and that Arcanine can go for things like a Wild Charge. I didn't want to bring Sun, just because of this mon. However, I looked at his team and I decided to bring Sun, and we're going to get into why I did that in a moment. Next up, we have Decidueye. Decidueye, again, another mon that I do not think is going to be brought this week. If it does get brought, we have plenty of ways of dealing with it. You know, Snorlax deals with it easily. Our Houndoom just double stabs, take it down. I honestly don't think Decidueye is going to be brought. If it does get brought, though, I imagine it's going to be just like a Defog, U-Turn, Roost, a Spirit Shackle set, maybe like a Leaf Blade, maybe a Banded Grass attack to try to deal with our Melodic. But if it does get brought, we have plenty of ways to deal with it, and I honestly just don't think it's going to be brought. Next up, we have Aurorus, a mon that is most likely going to get brought just because it can set up the Hail. If he doesn't want to abuse Arcanine in the Sun, then he's probably going to have Aurorus to set up the Snow Warding to get rid of our Sun to try to deal with our Houndoom. If he does this, I'm not worried, because The way I see it is Auroras is just taking away a spot that another Mon could have had, and I strongly believe that Auroras is going to be a bad pickup, as pretty much every Mon on our team can 1v1 it, depending on its set. If it's like a Specs, like, I don't know, Earth Power, it can probably knock out, or what's the rock move? It gets like Ancient Power or something. It can probably knock out our Torkoal. But other than that, I'm pretty sure we'll be fine against it. It can go for freeze dries against Melodic, which I will have to watch out for. But I'm not too worried about Auroras. Lucario, on the other hand, is a Mon that I'm a little bit more worried about. We do have ways of dealing with it, but I imagine that he'll prepare for those ways, like being Torkoal. Our best way of dealing with it would probably be Weezing or Tangrowth. Neither of which I'm bringing, which I do have to be kind of worried about this Lucario. I imagine it's going to be brought just because of the fact that it has super effective priority against Houndoom. And Houndoom is a very fast Mon. It's the second fastest Mon on the field next to Crobat, as long as he doesn't scarf anything. So him having priority with Arcanine and priority with Lucario, I imagine he's going to bring both to wear down my Houndoom. So that is something I do have to worry about, and I'm definitely thinking about it. But in the event that Lucario does not get brought, then I think we win with Houndoom. We'll see. Next up, we have Licky, a Mon that I'm not really worried about. I don't think it's going to be brought this week. If it does get brought, then I'm going to just wear it down with status and whatnot, and just general attacks. Not too worried about it, but you know, I definitely did think about it when team building. Next up, we have Gliscor. Gliscor is going to be an annoying Mon. There's not much I can really do about it. I can Oko it a couple ways and just do general damage to it, but it's, regardless, if it gets brought, it's going to be annoying. I imagine, you know, he's gonna defog rocks if needed. He's going to set up rocks to try to weaken 3 of the rock weak Mons that I brought this week. I know he's going to try to set up rocks, but I don't think he has a spinner, just like looking. Yeah, I don't think he has a spinner, only defoggers. So if he wants to keep rocks off his side of the field, he's going to have to defog them away. And personally, I'm okay with there being no rocks on the field. So that's just me. Next up, we have Araquanid. Araquanid, I'm not worried about in the slightest. If he does run the weird like Soak Toxic Stall set, then that's an option to try to deal with things like Metagross or whatever, or my poison types. He might do that to try to deal with like a defensive Weezing if he wants to wear it down for Lucario. I'm not bringing Weezing, and if he brings Araquanid, it's kind of like a free for me. I don't know, I don't think Araquanid is good for this matchup, and I don't expect to see it, but if I do see it, then I have ways of dealing with it. So yeah, as a total, I think that he's probably going to bring the Mega Latios, the Zoroark, and the Thundurus, but I think that he'll have the Z Crystal on the Thundurus. I think that the Arcanine is coming, and the Lucario, and then kind of a toss-up between like Gliscor, Clefable, and then like maybe Decidueye. I don't know. But let's get into my team. Enough rambling about what his team has. So first up, we have X, the Metagross. Now Metagross is going to be pretty good in this matchup. It can deal with the Clefable, it can take hits from the Thundurus because we are running the Assault Vest. It can also take some hits from the Zoroark. Now, Z moves can definitely do a lot of damage to our Metagross setup, but we can take on the Latios pretty comfortably, unless if he's like Dragon Dance, Earthquake, or Shadow Claw. That could be pretty scary, but if he's not, like Ice Punch does a lot of damage to Latios, Thundurus, Decidueye, Gliscor. Meteor Mash does a ton of damage to like Clefable, Auroras. We have Earthquake for things like the Arcanine, and just it generally, also the Lucario, but Earthquake just generally hits things on his team pretty well, except for the Levitating and Flying Mons. And then we have Pursuit for things like the Latios, the Decidueye. We should outspeed the Decidueye. I put enough points in thinking that maybe he'll run like 16 points on his Decidui. I want to run 20 to try to outspeed him. We are Adamant Nature with max HP and max defense. This is going to be a pretty bulky Metagross, but with the attack investment we have, we can still do quite a lot of damage to a lot of the mons on his team. And we do have that clear body ability so that we don't get intimidated by the Arcanine. Next up, we have Terrapen. This is a nickname from World of Warcraft. There's a fire turtle thing. It actually does look a lot like Turtonator and not like Torkoal, but I wanted to use the nickname anyways. So yeah, Torkoal is going to be running the Sun with the Leftovers item. I considered either Leftovers or Heat Rock, and I might honestly still change it before the battle, but the reason I decided on Leftovers originally instead of Heat Rock is in case the Aurorus tries to, you know, set up Hail, then we're kind of wasting the item anyways, and I wanted the Leftovers just to have some recovery since we are not bringing any Wish Passers this week. I want Torkoal to be able to take some physical hits. Looking at our move spread, we have Lava Plume for just general stab and potential burning. We have Stealth Rock to set up hazards and Rapid Spin to get them away. And then Clear Smog in case he tries to set up with anything. Clear Smog will work on everything except Lucario because that's his only immunity. But we do have it so we can get rid of boost on a Clefable, boost on a Latios, boost on a Thundurus. A lot of those mons can knock us out in one hit, except for like the Clefable and the Latios, depending on the spread. But we are running nearly max HP, quite a lot of defense with a defense boosting nature, and a bit of special defense. So yeah, hopefully this Torkoal will do its job this week. Set up the Sun, get up hazards, get rid of hazards, burn some things, get rid of some boosts, whatever it needs to do. Counting on you, Torkoal. Counting on you. Next up, we have Notorious the Snorlax. This is just going to be a setup set. I hope to set up curses once his team is weakened and just generally win. I have Facade in case they burn us, Heavy Slam for things like the Clefable and the Aurorus, Earthquake for the Arcanine and the Lucario, and Facade hits everything else. Neutral. Yeah, Sassy Nature with getting some Spadef in there and a lot of defense, so before we get the curses we will be able to take some hits. Obviously max HP, no attack investment, and I'm okay with that because we are going to be getting our boosts from the curse anyways, so I'm totally fine with that. We are running a speed decreasing nature because we don't really outspeed anything, especially if we're going for curses, so I don't really care about dropping the speed. I could have put it in special attack, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it's just the same stuff, so whatever. Next up, we have Balthazar, the Mega Houndoom. This name comes from Guild Wars 2. So, yes, I did talk about, whenever I was talking about his team, maybe I didn't want to run the Sun, but I decided on running the Sun because Fire Blasts in the Sun, he has no switch-ins. What is his switch-in? Araquanid? Get this Dark Pulse, you know, like, and I do expect that Araquanid may be brought just because of the fact that, you know, it can be very specially defensive, and if he runs an Assault Vest, you know, he can take a lot of hits from this Houndoom and then fire back with like the liquidations or whatever. But I don't know, I just have ways of dealing with Araquanid, so it may be brought, it may not be brought, but whatever. Regardless, I'm running the Fire Blast because it kills just about everything, the Flamethrower in case we don't want to risk a miss, the Dark Pulse for things like the Latios, and I think that's all we really needed Dark Pulse for, and then the Hidden Power Ice to hit the Gliscor for 4 times effective, as well as it hits the Decidui, it hits the Thundurus, it hits the Latios. The reason I mention that is because in case they try to switch into it, predicting the HP Ice, they're still going to be taking a lot of damage. And all of those mons still take a lot from our fire moves, especially if they're in the Sun. This mon, he really just has no switch-ins, except for, I guess, like Assault Vest Araquanid. But again, if Araquanid gets brought, it just makes the battle easier for for me anyways. We are running Timid Nature because once we Mega Evolve, we will outspeed everything on his team, barring Choice Scarfs and Priority. We do have a little bit of defensive investment in there. I don't think it's really going to make too much of a difference, but in the event that he goes for an E-Speed, maybe that defensive investment will help us live depending on his offensive investment. And really, I didn't have anywhere else to put the points, so I figured why not. The rest is in special attack to boost our attacks as much as possible. And I'm just really hoping we can get that sun up and punch some holes and make it so our late game sweeper with Snorlax can pick up the W if needed. The other way this battle could go is Snorlax sets up mid to early game and punches holes, and then we set up the sun and win the game at the end. Either way, Houndoom is hopefully going to do a lot of work for us. Next up, we have Serenity running the Flame Orb with the Marvel Scale, just because if that Arcanine wants to abuse the sun, if the Araquanid wants to do a lot of damage, if the Lucario is physical, this is the best set to deal with all those potential things. We have Scald to burn things. Now, we cannot burn the Araquanid, we cannot burn the Arcanine, but the Arcanine does not want to take a Scald regardless, and the Araquanid, we can just go for a Toxic or whatever. We have Ice Beam to hit the Megalodios, the Thunderous Eye, if we're ever put in that situation, and the Gliscor, as well as Recover for self-healing. Max HP, max defense, Calm Nature with a little bit of special defense. Normally I would run Bold Nature, but since we do have the Flame Orb, I don't need to overkill defense. And yeah, hopefully Melodic will be able to take those hits and do well. And last but not least, we have Crobat running kind of a weird set. I have the Black Sludge. I did want to try to fit the Roost on this set, but I figured that Taunt would be good because Taunt prevents the Latios from setting up, it prevents the Thunders from setting up after it goes for Prankster, obviously. It prevents the Clefable from setting up, it prevents the Decidueye from defogging, it prevents the Lucario from setting up, it prevents Gliscor from defogging, it prevents the Arcanine from going for Will-O-Wisp. Taunt is just so good, and I also want to U-turn and Cross Poison to hit the Clefable. Brave Bird, obviously, he has no resists except for like Aurorus and Thunderous, but Thunderous doesn't probably want to switch into Crobat, especially if rocks are up. And we are running Max Attack Adamant with enough speed to outspeed his entire team, barring Priority and a little bit of HP investment in there. Black Sludge to just recover up from our recoil damage as well as whatever damage we take, rocks damage and whatnot, and then just U-turn if we predict a switch or whatever. I like Crobat this week. I contemplated a lot of different things. I contemplated Tangrowth, I contemplated Weezing. I decided to go with Crobat just because I did want a bit more offensive pressure this week, as well as some speed, and Crobat is able to provide both of those options. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into the replay. Alright, getting into the first battle this season versus Craft. We can see his team and my team on the screen now. He opted to bring the Thunderous Incarnate, Lucario, Araquanid, Arcanine, Gliscor, and Clefable. So, two things I want to note right off the bat. There's no Megalodios, which is pretty good. He did bring the Araquanid, which we mentioned. Not too worried about it. The Clefable, again, something I'm not too worried about. Since he does not have the Zoroark, I'm under the impression at this point that the Thunderous Eye has a Z move, whether it's a Gigavolt Havoc or something else. As far as leads go, I'm thinking about leading with my Metagross, and the reason being is if he leads Arcanine, I have switches. If he leads Lucario, I can deal with that pretty well one-on-one. Clefable, I can beat that with Metagross, and I'm honestly thinking that he's going to lead Thunderous and go for like a Volt Switch, since he sees that I don't have a ground type or any immunity to electric, so he may just take the opportunity to Volt Switch on turn 1. So I do predict the lead. He does lead Thunderous, and he goes for the U-turn instead of the Volt Switch, which is interesting. I just make the safe play here and go for Ice Punch, and the reason being, if he decided to Gigavolt Havoc turn 1 to do a ton of damage, and not knowing I was Assault Vest, then he would have taken a lot of damage from my Ice Punch, And also, I didn't want to, like, over-predict turn 1, so I figured, you know what, I'll just go for the Ice Punch. It's okay if he goes Arcanine, because I can just go into my Torkoal and deal with the Mon very easily. He then roars me out into my Crobat, in which case I U-turn back into my Torkoal. Now, as you can see, he does go for the Flamethrower right after he sends me into my Crobat, and then it's kind of a huge sigh of relief for me because I know now he's not like a super offensive Arcanine. He's probably more of a support set with like Will-O-Wisp, Roar, Morning Sun, Flamethrower, since, you know, obviously I'm setting up the Sun, and that is huge for me. It means that I don't have to worry about like Banded Wild Charge, Banded Close Combat, Banded E-Speed, Banded Flare Blitz going against my whole team, which just does a ton of work. So right now, I'm feeling pretty good. Okay, there's a lot going in my favor that I was worried about. So far so good. I do get my rocks up as he gets his rocks up with Clefable, and then I gauge the Lava Plume damage, and with the Sun up, I know now that this is a very specially defensive Clefable. If not like max invest, and he reveals the Encore. Not too big of a deal, just prevents me from rapid spinning for a bit. And against this Gliscor, I actually do a lot with a Lava Plume, no burn. And here's where things get interesting, right? Because I see that this Gliscor does not have a revealed item. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he's probably a berry. Maybe he's Yachi Berry, maybe he's, you know, could even be Citrus with Sub or something. I'm a little confused on the Gliscor set because there's no Toxic Orb, there's no like leftovers. I mean, I don't know why you'd run leftovers when Toxic Orb, but usually you see this thing running a Toxic Orb, and I see that the Lava Plume damage is doing quite a lot, so I'm thinking, okay, this is a pretty offensive Gliscor. You know, 53% damage on an Earthquake and a max defense. It is super effective, but he's doing quite a bit of damage. Now, I do Rapid Spin away my rocks, and I believe I get right up out of there as he goes into the Arcanine. Or no, I decided to stay in. I don't know why I did that, but either way, he goes into his Arcanine as I Lava Plume it, and it's kind of at the point where this Torkoal is just sitting here. I don't really want to switch into anything because I don't want to take a lot of damage, and right there, I kind of get him by going Crobat as he goes Clefable. I don't remember what exactly I was predicting, but in my mind, I was thinking, I don't think he's going to stay in, and if he does, it's kind of whatever. And whenever he goes Clefable, I'm like, cool, I either get a kill here, or I can stop some shenanigans. I go for the taunt as he goes Araquanid, and that basically just allows me to knock him out with a Brave Bird on the following turn. Now, the reason I taunted instead of just attacking right away is because if he went Thundurus, then taunting him means that he cannot paralyze me, because I cannot OHKO the Thundurus, so had I attacked, then he wouldn't be able to paralyze me, or sorry, had I attacked, then he could just paralyze me the next turn, and it'd be pretty annoying. But since I taunted, it allowed for, if he goes for a T-Wave, then he can no longer do that, and if he decided to stay in with the Clefable, then he wouldn't be able to, like, Encore me into anything, or whatever. Taunt was just my best play, and it ended up working out because, you know, I outsped the Araquanid, but now he goes into Thundurus, and at this point, I don't really need my Crobat for anything, so I go for the Cross Poison. I do get the critical hit. Now, Cross Poison does have an increased crit chance, but that crit doesn't really end up mattering too much, and I view this as an opportunity to go into my Snorlax and start setting up. Now, I know that the Arcanine has Roar, but Roar does have negative priority, so if he does go Arcanine, the worst that's going to happen is he's going to Intimidate me and then take an Earthquake. Now, here, he goes into the Lucario as I Facade. This doesn't really matter too much as I just knock him out with an Earthquake here after he goes for the Close Combat. And now I'm assuming, okay, he's probably going to go Arcanine, but he doesn't. He goes Clefable, and he Encores me into Earthquake. Now, that Earthquake does a lot of damage, just further showing that this Clefable is especially defensive. Probably set up to try to take hits from my Houndoom. But he does lock me into the Earthquake, so it allows for his either Gliscor or Thundurus to come in, and my Encore does wear off, and now he finally goes in the Arcanine. He does Intimidate me, and I basically get a free Earthquake here because I know he has to roar. He is packing the Shuka Berry though, which, you know, it is what it is, but he does roar me into Houndoom, and as you can see I Mega Evolve. I'm guaranteed a kill here. I outspeed the Arcanine. The worst it could do is E-Speed, and it probably would not do a lot because, you know, he's shown that he's specially invested with Flamethrower. He's very bulky on his Arcanine, so E-Speed's not going to do a lot. I get a kill 100% here, and he goes into the Clefable. I go for the Dark Pulse, does 15%, allowing me to finish it off with a Flamethrower. Now, he goes into his Gliscor, and whenever he went into the Gliscor, I was thinking, why would he go Gliscor here? Because in my mind, I figured, okay, he's probably going to go Thundurus and go for a Prankster T-Wave, or potentially he's Scarfed, because he showed the U-turn earlier, so I was thinking, okay, maybe he's like a Scarf Thundurus or something. But then I was like, wait, he can't be Scarfed because he went for the U-turn after going for Thunderbolt. So I'm really confused at this point in time. I'm like, why would he not go Thundurus? And I was thinking, okay, well maybe, you know, his Thundurus has no way of stopping me. So this is just, he clicked this Mon because he loses the game here. What didn't cross my mind is that the Gliscor might be Choice Scarfed and knock me out with an Earthquake. Now, I did mention that we did not see the Gliscor's item earlier, and I was pretty confused as to what the item may have been. It turns out, you know, he was running the Scarf Gliscor to outspeed and knock me out with the Earthquake. Very good prep, but at this point it's pretty obvious it's not going to secure him the victory. My Melodic can easily beat the rest of the Mons on his team, which I do go into, and I click Scald, knocking out the Arcanine, and he goes Thundurus. Now, the reason I switch out here is because I didn't want him to give Gigavolt Havoc and me losing Arcanine, or sorry, Milotic. So I figured my safer play would be to sack off the Torkoal and then go into Metagross, where I can Pursuit. So if he decides to U-turn into the Gliscor, I can Pursuit Trap and guarantee the kill. Had I not gotten the crit earlier in the battle, the Pursuit would not have killed. So I could have Ice Punched there, and regardless, it would have, if he hard switched or U-turned in the Gliscor, it would have gotten the kill with the Ice Punch, or if he stayed in, it would have gotten the kill with the Ice Punch. So regardless, the hacks from earlier didn't really matter. But yeah, he's going to go into the Gliscor as it's his last Mon, as I go into my Melodic, which, as we can see, he's doing a lot of damage, and I'm a very defensive Melodic, but no crits. I'm going to knock him out with the Ice Beam, and win the first week of Season 6 with a nice 3-0. Could have been a higher differential had I, you know, properly guessed that the Gliscor would have been Scarf. Had I switched out predicting the Scarf into the Melodic, and then the following turn gone for a Scald, I would have gotten a kill. Basically what I'm saying is I could have won 5 or 4-0, but since he did have the very nice tech on the Gliscor being able to outspeed my Houndoom, it worked out for him. So Houndoom did miss out on potential many kills because of that, but it is what it is. Still won the battle. Nice 3-0, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, thanks, bye.